in the arcade in Harrah's Atlantic City. Remember back in, what was it, December, November? I filmed in here. There are noises, but nothing with copyright issues. So I'm gonna film more pet peeves from here. First pet peeve, raises to stupid amounts. I do this sometimes, but some people do it habitually. Raises to $9, $14, $21. You're allowed to raise to whatever you want, that's fine. But a lot of people don't take into consideration how much time it costs raising to $14. Even if someone has 2 red chips and 2 $5 chips and 4 $1 chips and raises to 14, okay, at least it's clear you raised to 14. If anyone looks over, someone will see exactly $14 out there. But still, most people, whether or not they have the change, are gonna call with 3 $5 chips, and the dealer's gonna have to make change for all of those players. If you raise to 15, the dealer wouldn't have to make change for any of the players. Also, some people raise to 14, they announce it, but they throw out 3 $5 chips. Usually, only the dealer and the player are the people listening. Other players in the hand aren't listening. They'll look over when it's their turn and see 15 out there, and even if they have the change, they'll throw out 15. Now the dealer has to make change for everybody. Sometimes the dealer doesn't even hear, scoops in 15 from everybody, and then someone says, like when action is almost done on the flop, wasn't it 14 pre-flop? And the dealer has to now make change for everybody. So it really slows down the game. Not a huge fan of raises to 9 instead of 10, raises to 14 instead of 15, raises to 21 instead of 20. That's the first thing. Before we go to the second thing, I will mention, this is kind of a pseudo helpful comments video. I make those videos where people say ridiculous things. I've been making some videos lately where people give me helpful comments. After the first pet peeve video, a lot of people said things that I don't know how I didn't think of them and put them on my list. So everything in this video is something that I've experienced. I agree, it's a pet peeve, but came from a commenter in the original pet peeve video like a week to 3 weeks ago. I don't know when this video is going up yet. On to the second thing. This is a Vegas one, the next one. Barely playing. I don't care if you play a lot of hands, if you play a few hands. I just mean the time between your first hand dealt in and when you stand up. Then leaving, but leaving your chips on the table, then leaving for like the maximum amount of time to make us at the table ask to get you picked up, and then you eventually come back right before you get picked up against your will, and you rack up your chips and leave anyway. There was someone who was doing this a ton in Vegas, all over really, sometimes at MGM, sometimes at Bally's, literally like clockwork. Play for 10 to 15 minutes, leave for an hour, come back and rack up. Like you could just, you know you're doing this every single time, you could just play for 10 minutes and then rack up and leave the seat open and the next person on the list can actually play. No. Leaves for an hour to make it, I don't know, seem like he's actually playing for an hour and a half when he's only playing for 10 minutes. I don't know what the reason is, but that would happen. And like I said in another recent video, there's a guy in MGM who I think just likes to show off that he's the highest status, and he'll play for about 10 minutes at the poker table, then play a slot machine for about an hour and a half. And he never gets picked up because of his status. Can't stand that. So that's similar. He usually comes back and plays for another 5 and then goes to the slot machine for another hour and a half. He doesn't leave instantly, but still not a fan of that. This one, I do give some leeway to new players, but being in a hand and having your whole cards not be visible, that's very annoying. I've done this myself when I was new. I remember in Wisconsin, I was in the 1 seat, so the seat to the left of the dealer, and just the way I had the chips and I was using my left hand to look at my cards, it wasn't difficult for the 2 seat or the 3 seat to see my cards, but pretty much like seats 4 through 9 had a really difficult time to see my cards, if it was even possible. But when the dealer told me what I was doing and why my card should be visible, I stopped doing it. That was like the 5th time I ever played or something, and I haven't done it since. There are people who, I understand they're new to poker, they sometimes like to have their cards very close to them. It's like the rail, their cards, then their chips. So when you look over, you see the player's chips, not the player's cards. But there are a lot of people, even after they're told that their cards need to be visible so other players know they're in the hand and so the dealer knows they're in the hand, and they're politely told why, like given a reason, not just a demand, they still don't do it. That's pretty annoying, and it causes a lot of problems, and there's like action out of turn, and there's premature burns and turns, and it just really slows the game down. That's a third one. And the last one in this video, having dirty stacks in your chip stack or betting dirty stacks. So a single chip stack of different colors. Usually it's just like by mistake, someone might be shuffling chips, several $5 chips, not realize there's a single $1 chip in there, and then bets with those chips. And even though the person might have meant to bet like $80 in $5 chips, which would be 16 $5 chips, it's 15 $5 chips and one $1 chip. Okay, it's usually on accident, but there are some people who just like to be annoying, which is pretty annoying for the rest of us, especially if it's very difficult to see the differences in chip colors. Caesar's Palace, when they had poker, the $2 chips were lime and the $25 chips were green. It was very close. Same thing at Venetian, I think exactly the same thing. The $2 chips, a pale green, the $25 chips, a more solid, a darker green. There are people who, either on accident or on purpose, either way, it's kind of annoying though, who will bet out a mix of two chips with very similar colors, and it's just a hassle. It's a hassle for the dealer, it's a hassle for the other players, and some people just don't care to keep their stacks in order, instead of like stacks of just $5 chips, which is mostly what you have. And even if you happen to have like 25 $1 chips in your stack, they'll just shuffle them or put them like alternating in the same stack and then bet that stack and make the dealer do tons of work, which is very annoying. Sometimes dealers will put a stop to it. Sometimes I, as a player, put a stop to it. The dealer will like separate them all and wind up with whatever, like 16 $5 chips out there and like 12 $1 chips out there. And I'll just hold out 2 $5 chips and say, give me 10 ones, so that the stack is a lot cleaner. And you know, I'm kind of preventing the player from doing that in the future, at least on the next hand, because I've taken away 10 of the $1 chips and given them higher denomination chips. So that's pretty annoying also. So there you go. I wanted to give you another pet peeve list, largely thanks to the viewers. Like I said, I've experienced all these things. They didn't come to me when I was trying to put a list together, but once people said in the comments these were their pet peeves, yes, of course, I agree. And there you go. This video is done. And remember, rice is a spoon food.